Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Chaos is a Ladder, but to where? Q&A, where I answer all of your questions about the various weird thoughts I've put forward on Littlefinger, and hopefully I can clarify some things, and maybe we'll delve into some shit that wasn't in the main series. And so, without further ado, let's dive in. One issue I had with the theory is that after the War of the Five Kings, it kind of makes Littlefinger directionless, since he's already completed his goal of revenge. What's his motivation going to be in wins? This is something that I think I brought up a couple times, but I probably should have been a little more clear on. I think his motivation is to get away with it. He needs to now survive having done his revenge scheme and gotten himself into the position of power he wants as, master of the Trident and such, usurping the Tullys. But more importantly, he's improving a lot because he kidnapped Sansa. So he's kind of juggling two things here. One is the corpse of the plan he used to have, the one that I think would have resulted in him hanging out in the Eyrie and riding out the winter and then returning to a position of prominence once everything has calmed down. And the protecting the secret of the fact that he has one of the Stark heirs and an important political figure, Sansa, in his custody. So more or less, I think Littlefinger's goal in wins is going to be making it through wins. And to be honest, I'm not entirely certain if he's going to survive. I could easily see Littlefinger getting offed in wins. However, his time might not come until Dream. Is Littlefinger the last hero? I think the mysterious legends about Azor Ahai also points to the most mysterious character in Ice and Fire. Littlefinger owns the Valyrian steel dagger and can trace his roots from Braavos. The Titan of Braavos also has a broken sword, making it look like a dagger. He has the most mysterious agenda orchestrating and moving the plot in the story of A Song of Ice and Fire, along with the Faceless Men and other magical elements like the Children of the Forest, the Others, and the Three-Eyed Raven. House of the Dragon also stated that before Aenar Targaryen, the origin of the dagger is unknown. So if you're like me, you don't really believe in prophecy in the world of Ice and Fire, and you think that George R. R. Martin has taken a much different stance than, say, like the showrunners and HBO has. Prophecy traditionally in George R. R. Martin works is all a bunch of bullshit, and so I think we're going to find out that that's true in A Song of Ice and Fire as well. So ultimately, I don't think there is an Azor Ahai, and any leanings that way are probably either something being overly read into or some kind of red herring or something like that. So, long story short, no, I don't think he's the last hero. I don't think Azor Ahai even exists, but I also don't think he's really connected to things like the Faceless Men or the Children of the Forest. I think Littlefinger is more or less a lone operator and a solo player. And to elaborate on that, I don't think he necessarily knows that much about any of those other plots. Like, I'm sure he knows some things, but he's very self-centric. He's very Littlefinger-focused. I would even potentially argue that he's not the kind of guy who knows what Varys is up to, even though he totally knows Varys is up to stuff, because he's more concerned with doing and more importantly, covering up his own actions. What's his role in the assassination of Bran? Did he kill him? Is his story true? Well, if you recall back in episode 1, I think it was episode 1, maybe it was episode 2. It's been a little while, and I kind of just make these things up as I go, rambling. But in one of the previous episodes, the earlier ones, I talk about the idea put forth by Preston Jacobs that, yes, that he sent the assassin to kill Bran. And more importantly, the idea that I put forth is that I think the assassin and whoever brought the lens is the same person. I think that when we meet the cat's paw, it's the same guy. But I will say that I also don't believe that Bran was the target, per se. I think the assassin and the cat's paw had essentially orders to pick out and kill whatever Stark was easiest to kill, and just to make it up as they go. I think that it was left a little bit to improv, because it would be super hard to, really know that one of these Starks was going to be the easiest to get at, and you would think the easiest would be Rickon. So, unfortunately for poor Rickon, I think he might have been the intended target, but it was just easier to go after Bran. If his main goal is revenge, what do you think Littlefinger's secondary goal is? Well, this kind of loops back to the first question. I think that now his main goal is to keep Sansa within his power and within his custody, and then to make it out alive. It's one thing to get your revenge scheme to happen, it's one thing another to get away with it. And so I think that that's the big step, the big hurdle in Littlefinger's life right now, is that he had some successes, but now how does he consolidate these successes to actually walk away from the table with his winnings? Your assessment of the role Jane will play in Littlefinger's downfall makes a lot of sense, but I'm curious as to exactly what steps will be taken to reach that point. Will she reconnect with Sansa, and in that case, how? So I got this question a lot, and we may come back to another iteration of it later, but this is one that I'm not super certain on. People in Ice and Fire are pretty good at getting to where the plot needs them to be, and I don't see Jane Poole headed back to Winterfell, and she is with Tycho Nestoris, and basically, he's gonna have to go back to Braavos. So I feel like, and this is something that actually was put forward in the comments, if you're reading the comments and shit, someone mentioned this. The idea that fake Arya meets up with real Arya and they return to Westeros together is actually one that I'm kind of hip to. I like that idea. But I also could easily see Jane falling into some other kind of plot or ploy. I mean, maybe she's used to be Arya by a different group, and she is okay with that because maybe she's helping Jon or something. And, there could be any number of plans along those lines. But at the end of the day, I think it's really wide open to speculation still, and I just have a hard time hazarding a great guess because, there's just a lot of information we still don't know. I'm curious what you think about two incidents involving the Gold Cloaks still under Littlefinger's control. A, the riot in King's Landing. Many things like Sansa's kidnapping point to Littlefinger being involved, which begs the question, does Littlefinger hide Tyrek somewhere? What for? B, the killing of the bastards. Littlefinger's Gold Cloaks swarm out trying to kill all of Robert's bastards. We are led to believe that Cersei ordered this, but Janos strongly refuses to confirm this, and we do not get any other confirmation. Cersei would not actually have to need to pretend the order came from Joffrey. Was this Littlefinger depriving Varys of some assets? So I think this is a really interesting question because obviously I'm a big supporter of the idea that Littlefinger did cause the riot in King's Landing. Everything lines up fine, certain people get killed that, probably he would like to die, and there's also an attempted Sansa kidnapping. So it does seem to fit really well into his behavior. And Tyrek leads into the idea of Littlefinger collecting wards, which is something that, while I don't have a ton of proof for it, I do like the idea, because again, my vision of Littlefinger's original scheme, prior to him having to modify it to adopt Sansa into the plan and such, and, carry on all his finagling and Van Hoodling, is I thought that he was intending to return to power, after winter had come, that he would emerge again and kind of sort of more or less stay master of the Riverlands, but fly under the radar in terms of punishments and such. And I think that having some wards would seriously help out. However, until more things are confirmed, all we really know about Tyrek Lannister is that he was last seen a horse. As for the killing of the bastards, that's a little bit more tricky to put my finger on. I don't know that Littlefinger would be the one ordering the murder of the bastards just to fuck up Varys, because like I said, I don't think he's necessarily playing against Varys, like he's trying to destroy Varys' schemes. I don't even know if he knows what they are. I do know that he plays against Varys, as in prevents Varys from understanding his plans and schemes. But, all of that said, there's a really interesting passage that I wanted to put in the Littlefinger's modus operandi video. I just forgot to do it, where it's him talking about Cersei to Ned. And he tells a very shady story about Cersei killing some unproven to exist bastard twins near Casterly Rock that totally inflames Ned and sets him on the trail to find Robert's bastards, likely to protect them. So it could easily be that, that Littlefinger is just doing some crazy manipulation here and those bastards don't exist, or he's using something Cersei actually did as ammunition against her, for Ned. So that's a really interesting question. I don't have a great answer, but my gut tells me that no, that really was a Cersei thing, and that she really is trying to kill off all the potential heirs. The original plan ended with Ned taking the Black. Joffrey derailed that unexpectedly. What do you think Littlefinger's plan was after he had Ned at the wall if things had all gone according to plan? Well, I don't think that was Littlefinger's plan. I do actually think Littlefinger was trying to get Ned murked. I think he was trying to do that from day one. Like from jump, he was trying to get Ned Stark killed because Ned Stark is just adjacent to, people he wants to hurt. Like, I don't think he hates Ned in the same way he hates Brandon, but he hates Ned because of many of the same reasons he hates Brandon for. Like, Ned is just in the crosshairs, like whether he wants to or not, and whether or not Littlefinger fell out of love with Catelyn or not, which I think he did. I don't think he loves her anymore, I think Ned was just doomed to die as long as he was wrapped up in a Littlefinger plot. So that said, Varys was the one who was trying to get Ned given the black, and that was very explicitly spelled out. At least it seemed like it was pretty explicitly spelled out. Maybe I'm being an idiot, but it seemed to me like it was pretty obvious. So I think that right there, jumping back to a previous thing, that's a great way for Littlefinger to kind of double up. He hates Ned. He wants Ned to die. He's looking to cause destabilization. And if you can throw a wrench in Varys' plans while carrying out his agenda, all the better. And so I think that's kind of what we saw going on there. Why do you think he's called Littlefinger? Both in terms of how he really got the nickname in the story and why Martin decided to call him that on a meta level. Well, if you recall the section I did in part 4 with Bruce Bunnish hates nicknames. They all call him Brucey, and he's like, Brucey, I hated that name, I'm Bunnish, and so I think it's very similar. I think he's called Littlefinger because he's little, he comes from a small finger, and there's also a little dick joke in there, and boys are fucking horribly mean to each other about penises, so my guess is that Edmure, was coming at it from all three angles, and that George R. R. Martin on the meta level is connecting this to Bruce Bunnish. I think that Littlefinger, that Peter Baelish is so Bruce Bunnish on so many different levels, minus the time travel. And so I think that that's a bit of both we're seeing there. It's a way to hurt him on several different levels. It's attacking his holdings, it's attacking his stature and his place in society, it's attacking his penis, and it's also exactly the kind of shit that George would play with because Bunnish hated that stuff. How much time do you think will pass between Jaime's trial and Peter's? What parallels might there be between the two? So this is an interesting one. I think we're gonna get the Jaime trial early-ish in wins, but maybe I'm wrong about that. It could be a more elongated process. As Jaime's, I agree with kind of the interesting nerd club angle of this, that I think that there's George R. R. Martin loves Trials of Seven, and I love Trials of Seven, so I'm also just a big Trial of Seven stan. I just love that shit, I'm all about my Trials of Seven, and so I think that we're gonna try to get Jaime's gonna try to get a trial like that to happen, like a Trial of Seven or something of that nature, and that's definitely gonna have to precede Peter's trial by a hot minute, because there's gonna be a lot of moving around, and the Vale stuff has to unfold. And more or less, one way or another, I think Littlefinger's gonna stay in charge of Vale forces. I think some tables are gonna be turned and some shit's gonna go down, but I think that Littlefinger is gonna be in charge of Vale forces more or less as they head into the Riverlands. So he needs to foil the lords in the Vale first. And so I think at the same time that Jaime's having his trial, Peter's gonna be narrowly escaping some wildness in the Vale and then coming out on top, with a really shaky foundation below him and a loss of Sansa's loyalty or trust, that she will be actively looking for a chance to bring him down. Will Littlefinger reunite or meet with Catelyn or Edmure? Since Jane Westerling is allegedly in the prologue for Winds, not necessarily the POV, it would be interesting if Edmure and others are in the party and get ambushed by Baelish's men. So, I honestly don't know what the fuck's gonna happen with Edmure. He could easily spend the rest of the war in Casterly Rock. Rest of the book series. We don't know. He could be any number of places. Catelyn, I like it if he reunites with her. Once again, it could be that Stoneheart is put to rest prior to a Littlefinger trial, but I just don't see it going that way. I think it's not only more juicy, but more thematically interesting and more narratively interesting if Catelyn's there when he's put on trial. So, long story short, I think, and I'm hoping we're going to get a reunion with Catelyn as Lady Stoneheart. Edmure, I don't know. I think that Edmure might just be shuffled off into the background. Oh, and then we have a follow-up to this question. Same commenter asks, if Littlefinger is reunited with Catelyn, is he going to become the new Night's King with Catelyn as his corpse bride? Now, they say they find this improbable because Stannis is their number one candidate for Night's King, but they want to hear my thoughts, and I have thoughts. I can tell you my thoughts. So I would say no. I don't. I don't know that anyone is going to become a Night's King. I don't even know if the Night's King is like real. Like I said, I don't believe in the stories and the prophecies and all that sort of shit. I think a lot of it is not, it's not direct translation, not 100% truism. But I think if anybody is going to fill a Night's King-ish role, it would be Jon. And I think Jon is highly connected to the others, highly connected to the Wall, and he's just connected to the Night's Watch. So if anyone was going to become like the Night's King, in like a metaphorical way or like a pseudo kind of sort of like the story way, I'm thinking that would be Jon. As far as Littlefinger and Catelyn, like I said, I think Littlefinger doesn't love her anymore. I think he stopped loving. I think when he got got all beaten up by Brandon Stark and had a bunch of weird crazy hatred and remorse and shit. And so I don't think that he's gonna marry anybody or anything like that. And I think that Catelyn and the Starks at large are going to find out that he was responsible for Ned's death and the attempted assassination of Bran and starting the war and, maybe even the killing of Hoster Tully and yada, yada, yada. So, no, I think that she would just totally, she is going to want Littlefinger dead, like, for sure. Like, and I again, as the stated in the video, I think that, Ice or Ice's current form might come into play with maybe Catelyn or her daughters giving the order to lop Littlefinger's head off. Why do you think a fraction of the fandom sees Peter as some kind of Joker anti-system guy? So I've heard the Joker finger thing a lot. Frankly, I think it's people like buying into Littlefinger's propaganda. I mean, it's like if you think Littlefinger actually loves chaos, if you think Littlefinger actually loves just cause problems to get result, you have not been paying attention. At least in my opinion, you've not been paying attention to his plans or what he does. But you've been eating his propaganda like really hardcore. Like you've been double fisting that Littlefinger propaganda. And I think that it's like a lot of times it's just easier to accept what characters say, even if you know they're deceptive assholes, than to question them. So I think that people who like the chaos shit, they just believe what he's saying, more or less, which I don't think there's a good reason to, because he's always talking to characters that we know he's lying to. Now, the anti-system, feudal, bringing down Littlefinger, like, this one's a weird one to me. That one requires, like, tons of crazy projection and reading into. I mean, it's like, there's absolutely no evidence that Littlefinger either A, critically assesses feudalism as something that needs to be collapsed, number one, or B, would give a shit even if he was, like, I don't know, a Marxist and had some understanding of fucking, systemic issues and problems. Like, even Marxist Finger, I think, like, would be out for himself, and knowing the system was fucked and shit would not affect that. He would use the system, game the system, be the system, whatever needed to get done to get his plans to happen. Because at the end of the day, like I say, he's a Bruce Bunnish. His life is destroying other people's lives because they fucked him over. All based on his perceptions, of course. But yeah, I get the first one because it's like I said, it's just people being lazy, more or less, or just people buying into what's on screen, just like, oh, okay, that's what he says, therefore that's his motivation. The other one, like, I don't know, it's a lot of extrapolation. It's too much for me. There's no evidence, there's no support. It matches nothing with the story themes or the character at large, and so I'm a little more lost on the second one. But I mean, it's people see what they want to see, Are you 100% sure that Hoster is being aborted? No, not even close. I think it's super fun. I think there's tons of evidence. I think it totally works. But no, I mean, it's just another awesome potential. It's just something that would be cool. It's just my own tinfoil theory. It's something that I think is there. It's right there. Like, it's totally right there. But there's a million different things that could be going on there. And no, I'm definitely not 100% certain on that one. I would break my theory about Littlefinger down to like two sections, like the non-tin and the tin. And the Hoster abortion one is definitely in the tin. Like, while I'm 100% certain he's motivated by revenge against House Tully and people who've wronged him, I can't prove he murdered Hoster. And I don't know if George was thinking about that or thinking that like, thinking it through that way. It could totally be a natural death. but I think it's the most fun. Like I said, it's certainly the most fun if he's poisoned Hoster Tully to death, and it's the most fun if he aborted him. Like, come on, like that's so juicy. It's so good. It's too good, and so I'm sticking with it. But no, I know by no means do I actually expect that to come true. So this next question is also a one about an Edmure meeting, but it's got some more stuff too. So it's kind of a multi-part one. So I'll break it down. It's a little bit long. Will Edmure and Littlefinger meet? How will that play out? What would a Sansa Stoneheart meeting look like and play out? And what would a Littlefinger Stoneheart meeting look like and play out? A Littlefinger Edmure, like I said, I don't know if they're going to meet. I kind of feel like they might not cross paths. I think that we might have seen the last of Edmure for a hot minute, but that could all change. He could easily be captured by the Brother Without Banners, set loose by the Blackfish. I mean, like, who the fuck knows? It's always up in the air when it comes to these stories because there's tons of potential. So that's what I'm kind of just, I don't have much to say about it. Sansa Stoneheart, though. That's a big one. I think that the Sansa Stoneheart meeting is going to be fraught with all kinds of emotion. I mean, like, Stoneheart, at this point, probably suspects both her daughters are dead, or doesn't know. And so I think that there's going to be like a, more or less, it's going to be really hard for the daughters to see Stoneheart like that, knowing that she was once this loving mother. And they're going to want to do everything they can to reverse that and to give her peace. And I think that Stoneheart is going to be softened by seeing her daughters are alive. And this kind of plays into the whole Jaime thing. Like, it's going to be hard to exonerate Jaime if there's no proof of living daughters. But if there is proof of living daughters, all of a sudden Jaime is being an Oathkeeper. And Oathkeeper, the sword, is not such a piece of shit sword anymore. And, so like, I think that there's certainly going to be some dramatic transformations, and I think that reunification with her daughters is what will put Stoneheart to rest, ultimately. As for Littlefinger Stoneheart, he's gonna shit himself, like quite literally. Well, maybe not quite literally, but maybe even quite literally. He might actually, in fact, like crap his pants and soil his small clothes, as it were. Or he's just gonna fucking not even recognize her until the very last second when they chop his head off and be like, "Cat." But that's a hard one. A shock and unimagining, like how most people will be shocked and think it's unbelievable upon meeting Stoneheart if they knew who she was beforehand. So we know how he fails, but what are his goals in the Vale with Harry and Sweet Robin? Will Sansa marry Harry at all? Will you include the Sweet Robin Elaine chapter in your theory? So I did a little talking about it. I didn't do a lot of talking about it. I mentioned the grain schemes and stuff like that because I think that's evidence that he was planning to stay in the Vale and maintain long-term power and control there, and that killing Lysa wasn't initially on the menu, and that he's having to kind of cobble together the remnants of his actual plan with, like, improv, which I don't think anyone in the story is great at, but especially I don't think Littlefinger is a uniquely good improver. He claims that shit, but he's never proven it. As for Harry the Heir, so it's my opinion, and I think I should have tried to cover this more, but I just don't have a formulated theory on it yet. So I might make a video when I think more on the idea, but I think Harry's gonna die. The likeliest one, and I mentioned this, was being murdered in the exact same way Sir Hugh was murdered, that Sir Hugh was a foreshadowing setup for that, and that Sir Hugh is also a potential heir to the Vale, and Littlefinger is knocking off the heirs to the Vale so he can have Sweet Robin in his custody, and maybe Sweet Robin is even his kid. I like that theory too, and I wanted to go back and touch on that. I just didn't find the right place for it, but yeah, so I more or less, I think that Sweet Robin is going to stay alive, and that's going to be Littlefinger's, he's going to hold him close in order to keep control of the Vale, and I think Harry's going to die. How he dies, if the Mad Mouse kills him, if Corbray kills him, if he dies in an accident, I don't know. If somehow Sweet Robin orders him murdered, who knows? But no, I don't think Harry the Heir is long for this world. I think Harold Harding is gonna go down hard in the next fucking book, and I don't think it's going to be a twist, for me, but I think a lot of people, especially, Harding stans, are going to just be like, what the fuck happened to Harry? No! I think he's gone. He's going to get offed, one way or the other, be it if he does it to himself, or be it if he's already in Littlefinger's crosshairs, and, Littlefinger's got a setup ready to go. If there's no prophetic element in your current theory, why is Littlefinger so fixated on the Queen of Love and Beauty? Also, if he's solely motivated by revenge against the Tullys, why start a war that he knew would endanger the entire realm? Well, the War of the Five Kings really never does endanger the entire realm, and moreover, it never endangers the place that Littlefinger was going to go to, his home base. Like, he had Lysa on the wrap, and, so because she's, basically doing everything he says, he's very carefully constructed a war that, only damages the people he doesn't like. And of course, his instrument of warfare, the Lannisters, they're going to get fucked too. But, even if you think about the outcome of the war, the fallout, basically only the Riverlands get savaged. Like, a bunch of people lose armies and people die and shit, but, nothing actually that tragic happens outside the Riverlands. Like, the Riverlands get fucked, but everything else is pretty clean. Like, it's a rather well-orchestrated conflict, and I think that even if the conflict had ballooned outside of those, rather well-controlled parameters, as long as it never spills into the Vale, it's never going to affect Littlefinger, and the Vale is really easy to defend. He's got 100% unilateral control over the ruler of the Vale, Lysa, and then he eventually would have become co-ruler of the Vale. And more or less, I think Littlefinger could give two shits about the realm, as a concept, you know what I mean? I think it's he ultimately, at the end of the day, wants to usurp and get rid of Tully power. I don't even think that he's, dead a million times set on, taking over as Paramount of the Trident. I think he'd like that, and he wants it, and he would accept it, but I think the plan would have been okay without it. It's like his plan, to me, has, degrees of success, and the highest degrees of success obviously involve him in the best positions, but it's seemingly willing to compromise and accept slightly less as long as he gets the basic outcomes that he wants. And that's more or less, that's a sensible plan. I mean, how are you going to guarantee in this complicated world that everything is going to go down right? So you develop a plan that has a high degree of a high likelihood of success. And that's more or less what I think is going down. Now, when it comes to the Queen of Love and Beauty, I honestly never found him to be that fixated on the Queen of Love and Beauty. He says that Sansa's mom was his Queen of Love and Beauty once, which it's like Jenny of Eldstones is a game that lots of fucking kids play. That's just really generic and normal. And he tells Sansa that life isn't a song and a variety of things. I mean, it's on his mind, but I mean, it's on his mind how you'd tell someone, "You're my sunshine," or something like that. I mean, I think that people have blown that way out of proportion, when in reality it's just passing lines. There's no real actual prophecy centric evidence or anything going on there. If you only focus on that and you just ignore everything else he says, then I can see that it being a focal point. But I just never thought that he was really actually fixated on it or really spending much time considering it. And he's rather disdainful of prophecy, and he really does seem to think that it's bullshit. And once again, I would argue that prophecy is bullshit in the world of Ice and Fire, because it's always bullshit in every story that George writes, and a huge thematic element in all of George's work is that prophetic, people are bullshit, and that prophecy is bullshit, and that claiming things are prophetic is bullshit. And so that's kind of my take on it, is that I don't think he's ever actually been that fixated on it. I think that people want to read that kind of stuff in because they like that stuff in fantasy, but it's not really George's style, nor is it anything he's ever played with as an author. And there's one thing you can say about George, is that he never tries anything new. And I know people are going to be like, "What do you mean he never tries anything new?" Read his old books. The man is fucking he sticks to a script. He's not experimenting. He's always telling the same stories in different settings. He might change the setting ever so slightly, but even Westeros is not a modification on a bunch of things we've seen from the Thousand Worlds. It's actually just a riff on other Thousand World stuff. So, no, I don't think that there's anything going on with the Queen of Love and Beauty, any other than people reading in a lot to it. Long story short, people read into it a lot. There's nothing there. How are his financial schemes going to play into the revenge plot? Or are they just for his own benefit? So, I think Littlefinger's debt schemes and financial schemes are to cause destabilization and to make himself needed. He definitely... once again, I think that from his position, the power in the Vale, his original plan was to be seated in the Vale, maintain control of a functional, intact army, distribute food while maintaining food stocks that would feed him, and then run up debt. It's more or less, it's just, he's just making it so that when he reemerges, that he isn't someone you can get rid of. He's entrenching himself the way that he's traditionally been useful and traditionally been entrenched. And that's kind of how I see it. Like, the Littlefinger debt stuff, I almost see it as like, it's more of like you're just watching him carry out his operations. Like, it's not, that's the end goal. That's just a functional part of how he operates. But I do think, like I said, that within the scope of the original plan, and I think there was an original plan because Sansa wasn't always there. I think that having people indebted to him or in need of him is important if he intends to reemerge and keep a position of power in Westeros. The Cat's Paw Dagger, Targaryen ownership, who to Littlefinger. So the Targs owned it, then who owned it, then Littlefinger owned it, and then Joffrey owned it. The problem is the middle part of who, and other than that, it being left behind in the treasury and picked up like a lost penny. Okay, so who owned the dagger? Someone could have looted it, could have been gifted. I mean, who knows? I think the important part of the who is that it doesn't really matter. Like it's not important to the story of the dagger. Like, yeah, somebody owned it before then, but we don't know who was it. Who knows? So that's one that I honestly don't know if it even has an answer. Like, I don't even know if George has an answer to that. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't. I'm not the best answerer of that question though. So I'm going to have to just kind of take a pass on it, and you just say that my guess is it doesn't matter. Like, it's totally irrelevant. Do you think Littlefinger has any connections to the Iron Bank? So Littlefinger deals with the Iron Bank. I guess the bigger question is he in cahoots with the Iron Bank, or like colluding with them, or like, something like that? And I think no. I think that yeah, he's from Braavos, but I don't think that means anything. I mean, his family's been Westerosi for like 3 generations, and they were sellswords before that. So I don't know like what their big, deep connection to the Iron Bank would be. I think he knows people from the Iron Bank, but he also isn't the only master of coin the Iron Bank's dealt with. So like, I don't know that he has any special relationship to the Iron Bank. How many of Littlefinger's fingers do you think are little? Is this about hidden daggers, or is this a pee-pee joke? I mean, or is it a pinky? Like, how many pinkies does he have? So I'll answer this in 3 questions. I think he has a small pee-pee. I think that he has 2 pinkies. And I think that, like I said in the Littlefinger's modus operandi, more or less, anybody could be a hidden dagger. What makes you a hidden dagger is, does Littlefinger know what you want? And then secondarily, can he provide that to you, or at least trick you into thinking he can provide that to you? Because if so, well, then you're a hidden dagger, and you didn't know that, but you are now. I'm realizing I think I misread that. How many of Littlefinger's fingers do you think are little? Okay, he's described as a man of small stature. So I'm guessing, that, I mean, but like, I'm not mega tall. I have pretty big hands. So I mean, like, who knows? Maybe his fingers are big, but as a small guy, he probably has small hands, right? Small guy, small hands, just like the way it goes. This next one's worded kind of strange, so I think it's along the lines of, like, why would Littlefinger allow Janos to receive such an extensive or excessive reward, for his man of his station? Why would Littlefinger let Janos get a hold of Harrenhal? And then secondarily, it's how does he control Joffrey to kill Ned? And why does Joffrey listen to him? Like, what's their relationship? And does he need Joff to consolidate power of the Vale? So, kind of multi-layered question here. I would say, once again, I don't think that having a castle is what was so important for Littlefinger. I think the paramount ship of the Trident was what was important for him, and that he was angling for that irregardless of who was going to be in charge of Harrenhal. I'm honestly, there's some things in the book in Janos Slint that I'm kind of misremembering entirely, but I don't recall that they were going to make Janos Slint paramount of the Riverlands. So I think that Littlefinger would have just been hoping to just have Janos as his representative in the Riverlands, and he could kind of rule through him more or less without having to actually go there and show up. Because again, I think he was planning to retreat to the Vale. And who knows, maybe he had plans to off Janos Slint and blame it on the curse of Harrenhal. That would have been a great play, help Janos, like use Janos to kill Ned, send Janos to Harrenhal, have him get killed at Harrenhal, blame it on the curse. Everyone loves curses, and, they all believe that shit in the world of Ice and Fire. They all think that curses are real and stuff. So, like, I could easily see that have been his plan. He controls Joffrey through subtle hints. It seems. I mean, like there's the example of him with the dwarves and telling, he's like he had to lead Joffrey to water and splash it around apparently. But it seems that like, the way he does it is he just puts an idea in Joffrey's head that Joffrey can then think was his idea. It's just the power of suggestion, more or less. He just hangs out next to him, and the right moments he's just like, well, this. And then Joffrey's like, what I just thought just now, this. And that's like, that's kind of what I see as how that was going on. As far as his giving him control over the Vale, I mean, like Joffrey and the Lannisters in general, they seem pretty indebted to Littlefinger. Like I said, I would argue that he's helped them in more than a few little backroom deals that we're not seeing. And so I don't know that he needs Joff to take control over the Vale, but I think that being close to the Lannisters, would have helped to a degree. Ultimately, he's already in, though, because, like, Lysa, like, he's been in control of Lysa for a long time. They've had plans to come back there and, get married and shit. It seemed like that was a long-standing plan based on things she said. So the Lannisters might have been a helpful thing, but I don't know that even he needed necessarily the Lannisters to be in power or anything like that, like, for it to happen. So I guess I'm kind of flip-flopping here and going back and forth, but I guess at the end of the day, I don't think it mattered. I just think that being ingratiated to the Lannisters at the same time you're using and manipulating them to help start your wars and carry out your plans couldn't hurt and would not hinder him in terms of his goals and ambitions in the Vale. When is Littlefinger 6? The fingering. There will be more Littlefinger. Like I said, I may do extended predictions about the tournament. I might go back and do some rereading, and who knows, maybe more sample chapters will be released. But I may go try and make some additional predictions. But a lot of times, I'm oftentimes like kind of bad at very specific predictions. I'm more of like a general predictions, like, I think it'll go here in the end, but how will we get there? Fuck if I know. But there's also, I'm going to do one about his historical parallel to one of the people in the War of the Roses that I think George was very intentionally doing. And then I've been recommended the book Wuthering Heights, which apparently has some serious Littlefingering bullshit going on in it. And, one of the characters in that, it would appear to be a rather strong potential influence of Littlefinger. So there will be some future Littlefingering videos. However, this is the end of the series proper. I'm gonna be starting a new series based on the votes, which, just as a side note, I'm so surprised everyone voted for Varys and Illryio over the Faceless Men. They're so less interesting than the Faceless Men. But that's what the vote said. And honestly, I'm not as boned up on the Varys Illryio bullshit as I could be. So I think diving into that will be fun. And it's a Littlefinger adjacent. I mean, he'll crop up every once in a while, probably, maybe, who knows. But yeah, no, more or less, this is the end of the Littlefinger series proper. So yeah, no, you'll have to hang on for more supplementary Littlefinger content, and then we'll be getting around to Varys and Illryio, which I think I'm going to call that series a game for 2 players. This question just says Doctor Strange, and so I'm going to interpret this as, would the actor who played Littlefinger be a better fit for Doctor Strange, because those 2 actors look pretty similar, and I'm going to say yes. While the Doctor Strange guy is quite sexy, the guy who plays Littlefinger is just fine as fuck. And that's just my personal opinion. And I think he's also just wonderful actor, wonderful voice. I just love him. I like that guy. He's fucking cool. He's my vote for Doctors. Recast Doctor Strange with the guy who plays Littlefinger, and then do a weird Doctor Strange multiverse thing where it takes place in the Middle Ages. Just something like that. Yeah, give me that. Why not? That's my answer to the question. Doctor Strange ? Littlefinger, top or bottom? I'm thinking he's a bottom. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know that Littlefinger's like calling the shots in the bed. I feel like. I feel like Lysa Tully's the one, mounting and doing the riding, not to get too raunchy, but I mean, fuck, it's my channel. You've heard me say weird raunchy shit before, No, I think that, yeah, I think that Littlefinger, I think he's kind of submissive in the bedroom. That's just my personal take. That's just how I see him. You know, I don't see him as being large and in charge. I see him as he's more the bottom guy. The shoe. How could the shoe constantly come back into the story? You know, a lot of people think it's very silly. The commenter left the question, thought it was kind of goofy. And, you know, more or less, I totally get that. I think it is a little goofy, but I could see it. You know, I could see it being a thing. I don't think it will be his downfall, but I could see it being a thing. You know, like, I could see it forcing him to kill some Royces when he didn't want to kill some Royces and weakening his position. Or I could see it being used somehow. You know, like, it's a possibility. So I'm going to say that I'm still kind of iffy on the shoe, but I don't want to rule it out. Keep an eye on that shoe. It could come back. It's the kind of weird thing that could crop up again. How do you think Sir Shadrick, the Mad Mouse, is going to be at play here? Well, I think he's going to have a role to play in the tournament. And I think that he's going to be instrumental in probably turning on Littlefinger. I feel like he'll do something to get hip to Littlefinger, and we'll see him in Littlefinger's presence, and then he'll be one of the guys who turn, like, maybe Shadrick will be one of the guys who brings Littlefinger to the trial or something, and it's like, ah ha ha, take that, you know, you thought I was your man, but I'm not your man. But then again, the Mad Mouse could just die all of a sudden. I mean, like, he's a character that I think a lot could go on with him, you know, but my gut tells me he's gonna be there at the tournament, being a role in the tournament. Like, he might be a guy who protects Littlefinger. He might fight Corbray and kill Corbray as a matter of honor. You know, maybe he'll joust and he'll he'll catch on to the fact that, you know, Littlefinger murdered Harry the Heir, and he'll use that as leverage against Littlefinger. Not certain, but I would say keep an eye out for that motherfucker at the tournament. Kind of weird, right? Because he says he's not a tourney knight, but I mean, like, you know, it's a tournament. He might be in the melee or something. Who knows? I feel like he's going to have something to do with something coming up soon, and the tournament seems to be the next thing on the list. Sheila Wint, alive or dead? You know, I have no fucking idea. I wish I had something better to say. I have no fucking clue. I'll need to do some digging and look it up, and maybe some series later on will have some information on the Wints. But yeah, I have no idea. The idea of Littlefinger hiring Sir Gregor to kill Sir Hugh in the raid in Riverlands seems pretty sketchy, as he's a big Lannister crony and could easily betray Littlefinger. Considering Gregor doesn't seem to be the smartest and doesn't seem to plan long term that much, is it likely that Littlefinger would have risked being outed just to kill Sir Hugh? So, okay, I don't think Littlefinger is going and hanging out with the Mountain personally. Like, he's like going and like chatting him up and around. I think Littlefinger knows the Mountain needs money, and he knows that, you know, the Mountain is essentially for hire. When people said the Mountain is a Lannister crony, he's a Lannister crony because they pay him. Like he's allowed, not, they don't even pay him. They allow him to collect tax income from his peasants. Like, that's the extent to him, how much he serves anybody. At the end of the day, Sir Gor's a fucking heroin addict. He's a junkie. Like, you know, like, that's what he is. He's addicted to drugs. I mean, like, I don't know, if you've ever spent time with anyone addicted to drugs, you know, then you know that they're not really serving any one faction. They're serving the drugs. Maybe I've just spent too much time in the streets hanging out with greasy people, but, like, you know, I had a lot of experience in the drug world in my day, and, like, no, Sir Gregor serves the highest bidder, and if Littlefinger sent a man to give him a bid, I think that would go over pretty easily for either plan. Either the raids or the killing of Sir Hugh would be a pretty easy sell if the pot of gold was big enough. Or if the access to Milk of the Poppy was big enough. And to expand on that, I do medieval fighting. I don't do jousting, but I do a sport where not having a gorget properly attached can lead to death. Like, people can die. They don't. It's safe because we have safe gorgets and shit. But I mean, like, I axed a dude very lightly in the neck area one time when I thought he had a gorget on during, like, a light sparring. You know, we were, like, just hanging out, demonstrating to some people who walk by the park, and boy howdy, did that little tiny fucking axe just jack his shit up. And, like, they're blunt. So I mean, like, gorgets are really important. They're super, super important. And it's hard to tell. You know, like this is why it's important to have your armor inspected. This is why before tournaments they check out your gear. It's why it helps to have your teammates put your armor on. I mean, like, because you can't really tell in the heat of a fight. And like, I fight like immediately in contact, like, like right up next to people. Whereas a joust is like, you're way on the other end of a list. You have a jousting helmet on, which is very low visibility. Like, there's no fucking way he saw. Like, I'm calling it. As a non-medieval historian, but as someone who fights in armor, I'm calling it. There's no fucking way he saw that. There's no way. Like, he had to have known. And so I can't think of another candidate for the killing other than Littlefinger. Like, it just, that seems to be exactly what the story says. There's no fucking way he just did it to be cruel, or because he's an asshole, or because he just saw a loose gorget. Just not possible. So I think it's a slam dunk that he paid him to murder Sir Hugh. I don't know that Sir Gregor knew he was taking Littlefinger's gold. I mean, like, mysterious man asks you to kill some random motherfucker and you're a heroin addict who just kills people for funnies? Like, Sir Gregor, mind you, it also appears to be like a sadistic murderer who just kidnaps and murders the peasantry. I don't think he has any fucking compunctions. I think that this is exactly the kind of guy who would not ask questions who you'd pay with a bag of gold to murder people. Like, I think that is literally Sir Gregor's MO. How do you see Jane Poole getting to Littlefinger's trial? I think this one I already did, but one more time again, I'll say it again. A lot of options. My favorite is the one where she travels to Braavos first with Tycho and then comes back with Arya, and we get double Arya, and it totally, I love the idea of all the chickens coming home to roost for Littlefinger, and I think that's why, like, yeah, he's wronged a lot of people. He's wronged a lot of people. A lot of people die, a lot of people murder. But, like, in the most immediate, like, characters who we get intimate time with, like, it's the women. It's the Stark women and Jane Poole. Like, that's who he's, like, right there who would fucking, come to get him. People said Tyrion. I think Tyrion's just too far away. And also Tyrion's a villain. Like, come on. Tyrion's not going to be doing justice. Tyrion's fucking evil. So, like, the idea that it would be Jane Poole, I think is very feasible. But I think that yeah, my favorite is her coming back with Arya. I'm loving that one. I'm sticking with it. I don't care how reasonable it is. It's my favorite. But it's George. I mean, like, people move a lot. Shit happens. It's gonna be twists and turns. Like, we don't know exactly what's gonna occur. So I think it's a pretty open field in terms of options. Why do you think Littlefinger decided for a Stark-Lannister feud when he didn't really care about either? Well, I brought this up before. If you want a war in the Riverlands and you plan to make the Vale your holdout, you don't really have many options. Like you're not going to get other armies to go to war there super easily. And there's a family attachment thing going on with the Starks. So the Starks are the ones who are going to get pulled in no matter what. And he's already in King's Landing, which is a Lannister-centric area. Tywin is very eager to go to war and has this reputation for warring and destroying stuff. Once again, I think he was totally willing to work with Sir Gregor. So I think that there's just a lot of that's just what the board dictated. I mean, it's you're playing a board game and you want to do an action. Well, there's only so many ways you can go about it. You can't just just do any action and have the outcome you want. You're going to have to take actions that result in the outcome you want. And those are kind of more or less dictated by the existing circumstances. So it's that's the existing circumstances of the map of Westeros. That's just the world, in my opinion, I would say. Do you think Littlefinger has to meet his end in Harrenhal? Well, no. Like I said, my favorite is a trial at Riverrun, but Harrenhal is just where I think the story is going. I just think it's looping back that way. I mean, we've just spent a lot more time in Harrenhal than in Riverrun, and it's so Riverland centric. Harrenhal is the capital, the unofficial capital of the Riverlands, even though we Riverrun's more so the place where orders have been coming from when Hoster's been ruling and shit. But I don't know, Harrenhal is just this place where shit goes down. Just in general, Harrenhal's a place where shit goes down. And so I think that it's the most likely. So no, he doesn't have to end there, but I don't think there's as good of a chance of him ending somewhere else. I just think that's just probably where it's going to be. Why would Littlefinger not keep a possible heir in case Sweet Robin died? And wouldn't Sweet Robin dying and Sansa's potential control over Harold be how she takes Littlefinger down? We only spend a minute with Harold Harding, but I don't think that his wife is going to be controlling him. I think Harold Harding's a real piece of shit, personally. Like, I don't know if he'll become, like, the most piece of shit that he has the potential to become. But no, Harold Harding's not gonna help Sansa, lead some kind of vengeance crusade. No, he would, treat her like a traditional Westerosi wife, and he'd be all about his own power and his own rise. And I don't think that he would be helping her in any way to bring Littlefinger down. As for keeping a different heir around, I mean, so I like the Mockingbird theory that Sweet Robin is actually Littlefinger's kid. I think that that's viable, but I also think that Littlefinger could poof an heir up out of somewhere else. You know what I mean? But that's more or less that could just be his bad planning. I mean, like that could just be oversights. But I think at the end of the day, no, I don't think it behooves him to keep too many heirs around, because like too many heirs means there's other factions can grab up a different one. And, like it behooves him to narrow it down to the guy he has in his power. Currently, that's Sweet Robin. So I think that's what that's about. If Harry dies, who's Sweet Robin's heir? I honestly wonder if it goes to the Starks, but I don't know which Stark, and there's probably a million claims. I think the simplest answer that who's Sweet Robin's heir if Harry dies is that would be up for Littlefinger to help the complicit Lords of the Vale choose, which once again puts that person in his power. So I think he likes controlling that field of option. And while everybody does think Sweet Robin's going to die, he's been alive like this whole fucking time. Like, I don't know. Sweet Robin is one of the characters that I absolutely see surviving to the end. Like, I don't think he's gonna kick the bucket. And more or less, I think Littlefinger kind of is gambling on, or like because he's a book character, he just like knows that because like plot armor, whatever the right word would be for that there. Like, like I don't see Sweet Robin as dying, and I think that Littlefinger has every intention to use a living Sweet Robin, and so that he's, more or less, he's not going to just let him die. Would the Royces or Miranda or the Corbrays potentially become heirs to the Vale? Building off the idea that apparently Randa said that she wanted to marry Lynn Corbray, which I wouldn't trust anything Randa says. Randa is cool. I love Randa, but I don't fucking trust her. I mean, she's a great schemer. She's a great liar. She's definitely a big brain. She's not. I don't think she's always actually dropping her real hand. I don't think that she is telling the truth all the time. And I don't know that the Royces through Miranda had a wonderful play at the Vale. I mean, I'm sure they'd love to stack the odds in their favor. They're a lesser Royce branch. It's like they're fighting an uphill battle to gain control of the Vale. I think that usurping the higher branch of the Royces or becoming, the potential next, house that would be getting advantageous marriages and down the line usurping the Vale from the Arryns might be like a long-term plan, but I'm also a little sketch on that. We don't hang out with Randa that much. We haven't seen that much of these plots. We don't know that much about the Vale. So I think, I'm just going to say that I don't think that they really have a great path there, which is why they're willing to work with Littlefinger. But I could be wrong. I'll leave that one kind of open-ended because I don't have the best answer. Not a Littlefinger question, but an interesting one. Are the others pure evil? No, I don't think so. I'm not the first person to say this. I think they are the sociological other. George kind of has a thing about, not playing too far from the hilt. And, he might have been kind of guilty about I think Preston coined the phrase, leaving the placeholder in on that one. Like there might be a little leaving the placeholder on that one, or he might just be trying to keep it simple. So it's like, come on, it's like the others, I think he's being pretty blatant with that one. I don't think he's trying to cloak it in any sort of great mystery. Will Marwyn turn Maester Aemon into a zombie? Well, we're getting into wild waters here. No, I don't think so. I think that Aemon's days are done. I think that pickled rum Aemon is as far as his story gets. Who will ride or control Viserion and Rhaego? I mean, hoping Victarion rides somebody. I'm a big Victisi stan. I like me some Victisi. I'm down with Victarion. I'm not down with Victarion's actions, but he's a cool character. He's fucking fun. He's a really fun character. I think he's a character that deserves more attention. And I personally, like, my favorite ending for Victarion would be him beating the living shit out of Euron until Euron's just a pulp, like a face putty. But I also think, riding a dragon and being killed on Dragonback or being eaten by a different dragon. I mean, there could be something fun with that. So I think that's a big option, for Viserys, or for Viserys, for Victarion, Viserion, or Rhaegal, one of the two. A lot of people like Tyrion as a dragon rider. I think it'd be fun. I'm interested in the idea that Tyrion is potentially even a latent dragon hatcher because of being a chimera. So while I do think Tyrion is def a villain and his plot is going to end with him doing villainous evil shit, I mean, Tyrion, the evil villain dragon rider, would be, I don't know, that'd be kind of sweet, right? Why does Doran keep putting his kids in danger? Long story short, I think that he's another character who's caught up in revenge. Like, he plays it off like he's all about justice and shit. But, I mean, Preston brought this up a long time ago. If you read The Thousand Worlds, there's the faction of Kimdis, the planet of Kimdis. And Kimdis's thing is they always turn everyone against each other and cause wars that help Kimdis that they don't fight in. And so I think that that's the best read of Doran I've ever heard. I think Doran does practice the Kimdisi philosophy. I think he wars in the way of Kimdis. And I think more or less he's lost in the sauce. Like he plays it off like he's not. But I think that's the game. Like, I think he's even playing his own kids. Like, he's become so detached from his children that they're pieces. That's my thoughts on him. I mean, I don't think I could do any more justice to Dorne than was done in the Dornish Master Plan and the Deeper Dorne videos. So I know I would just say go watch those. Those I would say are the best series and explanations on Dornish shit in general. But yeah, no, I think he's lost in the sauce, and he's fighting the way of Kimdis, and he's all his children are pieces on the side board. Fate of Barristan Selmy. So I was actually just having a conversation the other night about this. And so I think Barristan's def gonna die. I hate that. Love Barristan. I literally, like, I wish he was my papa. But yeah, no, I think he's gonna die. I don't think he's gonna die in the Battle of Fire. I think he's gonna die in a betrayal, is my thought. That probably he'll get blasted by those crossbowmen that are on the the walls. They're supposed to be covering them, but like, I don't think that's going to happen. And I think Meereen will get re-sacked by Dany's victorious, unsullied army and Ironborn allies and companies of mercenaries. Like, I think that we're expecting the slavers to show up and sack the city, but the battle's going to turn against them. And then that battle is going to end with Barristan being murdered, and that's going to kick off a re-sacking of Meereen. Is like, I don't know, if I had to make a theory, that's my hot take, I guess. Was Myrcella swapped for the Queenmaking chapter? I don't know. Part of me says yes, part of me says no. I liked the Vow for Myrcella video, but I would need to go do some diving on that one. Frankly, I'd need to put on the scuba tank and take a dip because, I don't know. Another generalized question here. How is the Winds of Winter going to succeed at moving all these characters where they need to be in order to get the Littlefinger trial to go down? Like I said, I think most of them are just already headed there. Like, their natural story plots are going to take them there one way or another. Like, Arya's got to go back to meet up with Nymeria. The Blackfish is going to stay in the Riverlands. Sansa, Catelyn, like, I think Catelyn's in the Riverlands already, but Sansa, I think, is coming back. Jaime and Brienne in the Riverlands, like, the brother of the Banners are there. I mean, like, it's just getting Jane Poole would be the weird hard one, but I don't think she's harder to get to the Riverlands than Arya is to get to the Riverlands. And I mean, they're both Arya in name, at least. So again, I like the idea that she goes with the Braavosi. There's nothing for her at the Wall, and there's nothing for her in the North in general at this point. At least not yet. Like I said, I think that she'll return with Sansa eventually, but yeah, no, I think that more or less, I mean, the stories it's just going back to the Riverlands. Like, it's gotta go back to the Riverlands. That's the way the story goes. And I maybe I don't have a better explanation than that, but I'm vibing with it. I'm vibing with the fact that everyone seems to be going that direction. Could Littlefinger demand a trial by combat? I mean, he could try. I think he would be denied because he denied, or did not deny, but Ned wasn't allowed to trial by combat. So I think that more or less that he's not going to have that opportunity to protect himself. And I mean, for fuck's sake, no one would stand for him. He'd have to stand for himself, and he would just get murdered by any champion. So, like, I don't know. I don't know that that's I don't know if that's a thing he can do. I think that it might not even come to his mind, or flat out he might be denied. Like, that's kind of, I can easily see it being like, oh, I mean, like, what, you're gonna ask for a trial by combat, but our fucking dad didn't get one? Yeah. So no, I think that that's not going to happen, even if he asked for it. The Baratheon Tapestries, do they play into the plan? No, not that I see. I mean, like, they're there, but I just don't know how they do anything with them. So I'm a little sketch on the tapestries. I get that they're there, but I mean, lots of things have cropped up in George R. R. Martin stories that just, like, never fucking come back again. So I don't know if those tapestries mean anything. I'm kind of in the dark on that one. Maybe if I did some more reading, and went back and tried to really track those fuckers down, but I don't see them as being mega important. Does Tyrion play a role in his downfall? I think I said something about this a hot second ago in this same talk. I'm just kind of rambling as I read through these questions here. I don't think Tyrion will get there in time. I think Tyrion will arrive late to the party in terms of Littlefinger will already be dead. So that's kind of my thought on that. Is like, my guess is that while I think Jane Poole is close enough, I don't think Tyrion's close enough. I think that a few more things have to go down. And one of those things I suspect is the burning and sacking of Pentos. And I've also heard things about the burning of Volantis. So I think Tyrion's going to be doing a bit of warring with Daenerys before he makes it back to Westeros. What is my favorite dinosaur? Well, that's a difficult one. I do love me some Ankylosaurus. I mean, I love Deinonychus because that's kind of more the size and scale of the velociraptors in Jurassic Park. Real velociraptors weren't that big. Deinonychuses were that big. Very scary, fucking super awesome creature. I don't know if they're dinosaurs, but I do like some of the aquatic life of that era. There's a few things like in the plesiosaur department. Or the ichthyosaur department, or some of the larger ones that I'm forgetting the names of because I'm not a dinosaur buff anymore. I was at one point, but it's been, over 2 decades at this point since I was a dinosaur buff, sadly. But no, I do like some of the aquatic life of that era. So those all get some big wins from me. I believe the ovosaurs, the oviraptors, the egg-eating dinosaurs, I like those. Those are fun. Like me some egg eaters. Obviously, I'm an Archaeopteryx fan. I mean, who doesn't love Archaeopteryx? I like Allosaurus a lot. I mean, I like most things in kind of the T-Rex or like the Carnosaurus department, the big predatory, 2-legged, short-armed motherfuckers. Those are all great guys. I like I think it's Pachycephalosaurus. I think the hard-headed ones that would ram into each other. Those ones are always fun. I do like Spinosaurus, and I like some of the I believe they're non-dinosaur spined creatures that I want to say they come from maybe it's Cretaceous? I don't know, it's been a long time. But there's some non-dinosaur spine creatures that are pretty bitchin' too. I like those ones. And honestly, without busting out dino books or doing some Wikipediaing, I don't know if I can provide any other great dinosaurs that I can think of off the top of my head. So just pick between those. A lot of those are great dinosaurs. I would say I'd take I'd generally speaking take any of those dinosaurs if I had a pet dinosaur or some shit like that. Although I love some of the big fucking herbivores too. I mean, there's some like Brachiosaurus, what was the A1, Arthrosauropod, the super long motherfucker. I like that one too. The dinosaurs, they're all pretty good, and that's why it's so hard to pick a favorite dinosaur because they're all so good. But where is Tyrek Lannister? He was last seen a horse. I don't know. I mean, he probably got off the horse at some point, but maybe he's just trapped in a stable somewhere on a horse. And with that, I think we've wrapped up all the questions I could track down. So yeah, I hope I didn't miss anything, but I tried to look through and answer them all as best I could. So hopefully that clears stuff up, although I'm sure it just raises a billion new questions. So if you have more questions, leave them in the comment section. I will attempt to answer them. And if there's like 100 or some shit like that, I'll just do a new Q&A or something. I don't know. But thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.